Hello world, welcome back, Making It Nation. Welcome to another episode of Making It with Chris G, where we have conversations with people in the world of entertainment who are making it from behind the scenes to the spotlight, sharing their stories and insight to help you get one step closer to making it. Thank you all so much again for coming back this week and listening. I'm very happy I didn't lose you after my terrible performance last week. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. So thank you for coming back. But I'm sure y'all still learned a ton from all the value bombs that Glenn had to share. It definitely was a very insightful interview. And speaking of Glenn and the Black Zillions, so Anthony Johnson, we talked about him last week, and he had won his fight and earned a title fight with Daniel Cormier, who is the light heavyweight champion at the UFC. Anthony Johnson finally got his title fight with Daniel Cormier. It's on December 10th at UFC 206. Very excited for Anthony. Sending my best wishes and a healthy training camp to Anthony Rumble Johnson and the Team Black Zillions. All right, y'all. It's here. Today, we're kicking off our Nashville series. I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. The next 4 episodes will feature interviews with a marketing specialist, a booking agent, an entertainment attorney, but today we're kicking it off with one of the senior directors at Fueled by Ramen and Roadrunner Records, and that's Mr. Erick Charles. More on our guest Erick Charles in just a second. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We got another 5-star review on iTunes this week. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to the podcast. It's free, absolutely free on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. It means the world to me to get you guys continued support and keep this party going. And I got plenty of more exciting stuff in the works and coming up. At the end of this episode, I'll share an iTunes review of the week. And if the one I read is you, send me a note. I have an extra little special thank you for you to share for taking the time to leave a 5-star review. All right, y'all, let's get this Nashville party started. What do y'all think? In this interview, we're going to be talking Nashville, music, and beer. It doesn't get much better than that. So today's guest is Erick Charles. Erick Charles is the Senior Director of Field Operations for Fueled by Ramen and Roadrunner Records. He got his start in the music industry while studying at the University of Florida. While living in Gainesville and playing in bands himself, he became friends with the employees at Fueled by Ramen, which was only a few years old at the point. Helping fulfill mail orders turned into him growing the street team. Fueled by Ramen moved to Tampa for a couple years and quickly exploded with bands like Fall Out Boy, Paramore, Panic at the Disco, Gym Class Heroes, and many, many more. Taking off, Fueled by Ramen partnered with Atlantic Records, which would take him to New York City for 7 years. And now he moved to their Nashville office for the last couple of years. Erick continues to oversee field and festival marketing for Fueled by Ramen and also Roadrunner Records. He develops creative marketing ideas for every artist on both labels that are executed on-site at festivals, concert tours, and special events throughout the entire year. Erick has a really great story. This is such a fun interview. I'm really excited to kick off the Nashville series like this. I hope y'all enjoy. Here's my guest, Mr. Erick Charles. Hello, Erick. What's going on? Welcome to the show.
How's it going, Chris?
Oh, it's going good. So excited to be hanging out here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yep.
Yeah. So notice a lot of museums around town, and
I've never been to any of them.
Oh man, I was going to ask you what would you recommend to some tours? What's some of the good ones to go to that you've heard of at least?
Museums?
Yeah.
I know that there's that if you're talking about the Country Music Hall of Fame, that one I have been to that one.
Yeah.
Or I've been to went to the Johnny Cash Museum, which was pretty cool too.
So it is a separate museum. We saw the Johnny Cash sign.
Mm-hmm. There's one downtown. It's 2 different. They're really close to each other, but it's 2 different places. The Johnny Cash one's pretty tiny.
Yeah.
But there's also a Museum of Fine Arts, the Frist. I've never been there.
No, we're in music.
That's
City.
what I thought you were talking
in music
about.
City.
Yeah.
We're not going to fine arts museums.
Exactly.
No, there's a bunch of music museums we saw. We saw
Yeah.
the Johnny Cash sign. We saw the Country Music Hall of Fame, and then there's like another one, some other kind of music museum. I don't remember what it was.
I don't know what you're talking about either.
Okay, well, the Johnny Cash museum. We'll have to check it out in Nashville.
Yeah,
Tennessee.
that one I would suggest. Johnny Cash one it's small, but it's super thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool.
So as a fellow Florida boy,
Yeah.
how do you end up in Nashville? Tell me about that journey a little bit.
Yeah, so I went from Florida, as you said, but I went to the University of Florida in Gainesville, and that's the town where the label I still work for was founded, Fueled by Ramen. It started there while I was going to school there. It was still based there. Then they moved to Tampa, and I was like, I'll move to Tampa. Mm-hmm. And they had a job for me. So basically, been running their field marketing department, street team stuff ever since then. So this was like in 2005. That's when it moved to Tampa, yeah. And then, from then on, we started working with Atlantic Records, kind of half got consumed by them, had a partnership with them. And we all moved up to New York. Mm-hmm. And we still have most of the Fueled by Ramen people are still in New York. But, so I was there for 7 years, decided I wanted to change. New York is super expensive,
right?
Which is kind of the tale you'll hear of a lot of people the last 3 years here in Nashville. There's a ton of us that have come from New York or LA.
And a few years from now, Nashville will be just as expensive as New York.
Right, exactly.
With all the growth
it's working its way there for sure. But yeah, so... it was always good being in New York because you definitely learn a lot and you're around a ton of talented people, and obviously all like the home offices are in New York and LA. So, and to be a part of such a big company like Atlantic. So I was there for 7 years, and I basically asked if I could move, so they let me move with my job. Mm-hmm. So I still work for them, and there's Warner offices here. Warner Nashville, and that's where we have a little outpost for Fueled by Ramen and Roadrunner.
What's the relationship with Warner and Fueled by Ramen? Like, why is the office at the Warner?
So Warner is the parent company of Atlantic Records.
Okay.
So Warner Music Group has a bunch of labels underneath it, one being Atlantic, which Fueled by Ramen is under Atlantic.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And Atlantic used to be one of the the big five of
yeah.
the major labels?
Yeah, still is.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Got it. Were you part of the transition when Fueled by Ramen joined forces with Atlantic? Or?
Yeah, so that was happening while we were in Tampa. So, yeah, and it was super exciting. Mm-hmm. I remember John Janik, who was the president and founder of Fueled by Ramen, when he started to let us know that, we were maybe partnering with them, and, we all kind of knew that this could lead to like better things, mm-hmm. and maybe potentially get us into have us move to New York because we're still in Tampa at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was an exciting time. That was like 2005, 2006. Fueled by Ramen had like bands like Gym Class Heroes, The Academy Is, mm-hmm. Paramore, Panic at the Disco, Who's What We Aim For. So, you can imagine all those bands started to do really well already when we're living in Tampa, and then we started working with Atlantic. Mm. It was cool because we could be in a smaller town, but we're working like big shit.
Right.
Stuff that's on the radio, like stuff you're seeing back when MTV and Fuse were still playing videos. So to get that view and to be part of something like that and not live in New York and LA was really cool.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, we're kind of like, well, we really want to do it.
Right.
Let's check this out for a little bit. So
well,
me
especially
personally,
being able to live on the Gulf Coast in Florida while doing that for a while.
Exactly. It was awesome. It was laid back. You have the beaches, but eventually we all knew like this was growing. So we're all going to end up in New York or LA or Chicago or in Austin or something at some point. And New York is where we all landed.
When you ended up in New York, was that your first time going to New York, or have you been
No,
there before?
My brother went to medical school there.
Okay.
He's 8 years older than me.
Okay.
And then my sister actually went to college there too, and she's 4 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. But she she moved there probably 5 years before I moved there. So she was like in college while I was in Tampa, post college. So I'd been there a lot.
Okay.
I was
The
super
whole
excited.
family ends up in New York.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Just 3 of the 4 kids from Fort Myers, Florida, all landed in New York at some point.
And what was the so you asked to be transferred to Nashville. What was the motivation behind wanting to go to Nashville?
It was really just wanting a change, wanting to, Nashville, this was 2.5 years ago that I've been here now. It was already starting to change, and there are other people that have moved from New York that I knew in other aspects of the music business, and they were like, it's awesome down here. It's more laid back, but you still have a lot going on, and it's obviously still a major, town for the music business.
Right.
A lot of companies are here. I mean, for a while it was just Christian and country music, but then there were like other like heads of departments in like the pop and rock world that were like moving down here or allowing people to move down here. So yeah, it seemed like a good opportunity.
Yeah, you enjoyed Nashville so far?
It's awesome.
Yeah, what's your favorite part about Nashville?
I think it's cool because it's a manageable size, but you still have a lot going on. I think the combination of having a good work-life balance, but still people here are still go-getters, I don't want to paint a picture that it's like so laid back that, we can't handle like people in New York and LA, there's a lot of, ex-New York and LA music business people here now and like that aren't, in the country world. So you still feel like could be in either one of those big cities, but you're definitely not when you look around. It's more of a suburban lifestyle with some still cool stuff going on.
So what's up with all the cranes? First time I came to Nashville was 4 years ago, and it felt very like small town.
Yep.
Like everyone's like very community oriented. And now that I'm here, it's grown massively, and I see cranes everywhere.
And the traffic just keeps getting worse every month, and it's just a crazy booming town. They're changing I've been here 2.5 years, and even like the landscape and like the infrastructure and like the amount of bigger buildings has grown exponentially since I've been here, and it keeps going. And there's so many hotels that weren't here before. It used to be a pretty tiny town.
Yeah.
And now that everyone wants to come visit here because it's a hot town, and then you realize that the hotels are super expensive because there's no rooms. God.
Yeah, they are.
So there's like 10 new hotels that are being built right at this moment.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So is your guys' office, is it located downtown, or are you guys?
It's on Music Row.
On Music. Oh, that's cool. At least you guys still kind of like do you kind of know the history about Music Row, or what's Music Row all about for those that don't know?
Yeah. Well, basically it's mainly 2 streets, but there's kind of an area that's surrounding it too. And what makes it really cool is that a lot of offices look like houses.
Right.
And there's recording studios and, publishing companies and pretty much every like labels, pretty much everything is in that area when it comes to music. There's certain offices that are in different locations and or in surrounding areas of Nashville, but it's really cool. You drive down and it doesn't look like there's no high rises. There's none of that. super quaint, but that's where a lot of the business is happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the first time I came here, a lot of the agencies, like the big agencies, were not in downtown. They were like more around Music Row, and they're all starting to move downtown. Is that where the trend of the industry in Nashville is going? Is everybody going downtown, or is there still people trying to keep the history of Music Row alive?
I think there's a little bit of both. There's definitely been talks of more companies like going to not only downtown but East Nashville, which is hip area. Right. So CAA is actually downtown, and they are.
And APA just moved downtown.
The who?
APA.
APA. Yeah, exactly. I have a couple of friends that work for them. So I think especially because all these companies, they're acquiring other employees from their New York and LA offices because people want to move here and people are being allowed to move here, so they need space.
Right.
So it's pretty crazy.
It's definitely changing the scene over here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about like your role at Fueled by Ramen. Kind of what is your day look like, your week look like? What kinds of things you're responsible for over there?
Sure. So I, for Fueled By and Roadrunner, I am Senior Director of Field Operations. So that's kind of sounds like a super technical title there. But basically it's field marketing. So it's everything from all the street teamwork to what we do at festivals, putting together, branding opportunities and working with the sponsorship teams for festivals like Warped Tour and other fests, Riot Fests. And a lot of times it's like, supporting promotions around tours and then obviously around releases. So it's a lot of like the stuff that happens out in the field with either teamers or people that we hire.
Okay, so it's like a lot of the physical stuff away from
promo.
social media.
Yep, but there's also definitely a digital component too. I mean, everything that we need to do to like have people sign up for stuff that we need is obviously online. And then we always have missions on the street team site that have to do with, sharing a video or, retweeting this or commenting here, that kind of stuff.
So the street team is like a physical street team, but also a virtual street team that does stuff virtually? What kind of, so retweeting videos, sharing stuff?
A lot of Spotify stuff now. Like we want to encourage people to, make their own playlists or share and subscribe to Spotify playlists that have become really, really popular and really important to the industry that have Fueled By Ramen or Roadrunner bands on them. So, it's Spotify has become this indicator of how things are like how songs are doing, like, who's listening, how much are they being streamed, and then they have their own charts on Spotify. And, that's ammo that every aspect of the label can bring to whatever portion they work for. So like the radio promo, people can tell a station like, hey, look how well it's streaming on Spotify. Look how many playlists it's on, blah, blah, blah. And that's information that, we can use.
So those individual playlists, they actually matter on Spotify. So if I created a playlist and started adding Fueled By Ramen bands or Roadrunner bands on my playlist, that kind of stuff matters? Yeah,
because Spotify takes all that data and they're like, wow, look at how many people are adding this song to their own playlists. That means people like it. Let's add it to a playlist that they curated.
Oh, interesting.
And, and all the Spotify playlists, I mean, they have anywhere from like 100,000 followers to like, a million. So, some of them are a really big deal when your song's on them. So yeah, Spotify's looking at all that stuff and they can tell like, if people are listening to the whole song or if they're sharing it within the app or, or if they're just like clicking off of it and just being like, oh, I don't really like this song.
Right. So if you're a band starting out, like, even though you only have a following in your hometown, let's say you get 100 to 200 people out to your hometown show, if you can get all of those 100 to 200 people to add your music to a playlist that they create, like that kind of stuff seems to make a big difference then. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think it's just a new digital way of having a street team and having your fans kind of, I think it's it's all moving that way. I think when it comes to digital versus physical street teaming, I still think that the physical side is important because we're all kind of getting hit in the head with a lot of things online all the time. So it's kind of hard to keep up.
Right. It's a lot of noise online.
Exactly. So, and I mean, there's been a lot of labels that have gotten rid of or outsourced their kind of street marketing or festival marketing, or they'll do things, they'll hire out another company to just kind of plug in when they think they need it. But Fueled By Ramen and Roadrunner are such brands that, if a fan is like really into a band on Fueled By Ramen or Roadrunner, they're more susceptible to listening to other things on that label too, as opposed to like some people don't really know what are on like certain major labels. You wouldn't even know what label people are on.
Right.
But Fueled By especially and Roadrunner have kind of created this brand. So keeping all that in house and making sure that people can like be a part of our fans of music can be a part of our album rollouts is important.
Right. So what kind of physical things do fans do when it comes to the physical street team stuff? Is it still like the typical flyers and posters, or is there more that goes to it?
Yeah, I mean, there's that for sure. Baseline, I mean, we tend to make we tend to still want that kind of, the poster up in like the retail shop or on campuses, but we try to get really creative too. Like what I've always tried to do, particularly at festivals, is you make something that people are going to want to use that day and it's going to be helpful for them. So you don't really want, if you get a flyer and you're at Lollapalooza, you don't care.
Right.
But if you get like a drawstring bag that you need to put stuff in, you're going to carry that around, and, depending on what's on that drawstring bag, can be good, good advertisement the whole day.
Sure.
Or like can fans, we make a lot when it's super hot. So I always try to think about, and then, we let art dictate a lot of it too, like the creative of what the logo is going to look good on, or what we can do with the theme of the record or a song that can coincide with something that's physical, so we try to be more creative than just being like, oh, let's just make another sticker. We don't know what to do. So,
yeah. And a massive stickers, that's Warped Tour.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it comes to those small items at festivals, they just get dropped on the ground.
Right.
So, we try to use those stickers for smaller club shows, or just leaving some at retail, or like at a skate shop, or even at school. We have a lot of young bands that have young fans. So, they're at high school and they're putting a sticker on their Trapper Keeper or whatever they call them now. They probably don't call them that anymore. But so yeah.
So how do you? Because like we always, when I teach at Full Sail, like we always teach students, if your fans are younger, like your target audience is kind of like the parents. Is the younger audience your actual target audience, or do you target the parents in some way too? Like, what is your guys' strategy when you do have younger fans?
I think we always target the fan directly. I mean, there's probably a certain point when a band gets, like, let's take 21 Pilots for example. They have become such a household name, and they've crossed over on radio and have been a multi-format success, that their fans span from like 9 years old to 59 years old. So obviously, when you're doing kind of like the online advertising, and you're probably widening that gap of like who you're trying to hit. But if it's a new band, you're gonna go after, and they have young fans, you just stay in that wheelhouse.
Right.
There's no rule. I mean, sure, parents are taking the kids to the show, but they don't even know what they're taking their kids to.
Right.
So,
are you familiar with Shep Gordon, Alice Cooper's manager?
Yeah.
So you kind of know about like his creative marketing strategies that he used to use.
Oh, no.
So I was listening to this thing the other day where he would target the parents, and their whole, this was in the 70s movement, where it's like very like anti-government and very anti-war and anti-listening to your parents. So he would try to target the parents, and his whole goal was to get the parents to hate Alice Cooper so much that they would like warn their kids, do not listen to Alice Cooper, do not go to his shows, and
which is only going to make them want to listen to
go
it more.
Yeah.
I mean, that totally works, especially for an artist like that. Or one of my favorite bands is Bad Religion, and they really like. There's no real. I mean, some of their lyrics, of course, are super deep, and Greg Graffin is. He was a professor, and he's like really. They're all like very well-read people, but when they came up with their cross, the cross and like the crossed out logo, it was just basically to piss parents off.
Right.
So, yeah, it goes a long way.
It does, yeah. What are some of your favorite marketing strategies that you've seen or that you guys use to target people?
I mean, I think overall, I love it when there's an obvious direction when it comes to creative, and a vision with the artist that we just kind of help foster. Because, you can come up with a really good creative marketing plan or idea, but if it's not connecting on its own, then it's kind of going to be like, oh, that was a cool idea, but we still don't know what it's about.
Right.
So, I think when the artist has such a clear vision of like what they want everything to be portrayed, or how they want something, like even if it comes down to the colors they use and their logos and their art and their merch and all that stuff, I love that. And I love when bands have a combo of that vision and also will stay on the road. I think that's still like really important to be like, in front of people's faces, and
Sure.
and I love to see and help bands get bigger and bigger in those markets every time they come by or come through.
So like, there's so much, especially with a company like Fueled by Ramen. You've been with them for 11 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many bands from that label that have been extremely successful, but then also a lot of bands that didn't like really make it very far in their careers.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really copy and paste what you've done with other bands in the past. So there is like some luck involved too, right? Luck and timing. Like, what
sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely think that. I definitely think too, just knowing who you are. Like, you know, when you're an artist, you should probably just stay true to what you think is great, and hopefully that connects with people. But if as soon as you or the label tries to make something that's not there, it's people aren't going to buy it,
right?
You know, and that goes for like, you know, if you started out sounding like a certain way, but now you want to go this way on the second record, if you go too far, your fans are going to be like, what happened? I really like that, you know?
Right.
So, you know, you can obviously grow and evolve over time, but I think that's part of it. But yeah, it's total timing and luck.
Do you feel like some bands sometimes kind of rush their growth process? Like,
for sure.
Kind of do things too fast? Like,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think... And I don't blame them sometimes. It probably sucks to play the same songs and have fans as a fan, because we all love music as fans too. Like, you definitely expect, or you can put expectations on a band. You know, you want them to stay a certain way, or you wish they didn't do that. You know, and so I feel like the bands probably usually will feel that as well. But you know, a lot of times people just want to hear your old shit. So.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, they love the old songs.
Exactly.
They're waiting for you to play that hit song from the first record.
Right.
It's the last song of the show.
Right. And, you know, you had fans, you got fans for a reason. They loved, you know, they connected with that album. So I think staying true to kind of that, you know, just it can go a long way.
Yeah. So earlier we were talking about kind of before we were recording about the relationship of Fueled by Ramen and Roadrunner Records.
Yeah.
What is that relationship like? You know, how did that come about?
So it was 4 years ago, I think, when our first founder, John Janik, left to go head up Interscope. At that point, we got a new boss, Mike Easterlin, who was already working for Roadrunner. He came from the radio side. And Roadrunner had their own radio promo side of, you know, department, and he was the head of that. But it was Roadrunner was getting acquired by Atlantic, like Fueled by Ramen did at this time too, and they made Mike the head of Roadrunner Records. Okay. At the same time that he became the head. He first was the GM of Fueled by Ramen, and now he's the president of Fueled by Ramen. Okay. So, but always our boss. It was just a change in title for him. Yeah. But so because of the two labels having the same head, it was great for, you know, people that were just Fueled by Ramen before, because we could be like, you know, if we express interest, like, oh, I can help with Roadrunner bands too. So you just kind of expanded your roster, and now it's become not everyone. There are certain people that only work Roadrunner, and certain people that only work. I think actually now no one that is Fueled by Ramen doesn't work Roadrunner, but there are a couple people that are Roadrunner that don't work Fueled by Ramen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What does your typical day look like?
I go into the office.
Around what time do you roll in?
It's usually like 10 a.m. I think it's like I think 10 to 7 is kind of the hours, but obviously that changes and varies, and, you know, you can have days that there's a lot of meetings and calls, and you can have a lot of days where you don't have a lot of that, and you literally look like you're just at your computer doing emails. Right. Which sometimes you kind of are. Yeah. There's a lot of emailing. It's a lot of office life, but then, you know, you tend to try to break that up with meeting with people and having lunch meetings, and then obviously there's shows all the time. Not just shows of bands that you work with, but, you know, other bands. Sure. And whether it's, you know, bands that you like, or you have friends that work at other agencies or other labels, and they're like, hey, come check out our band, you know. So there's a lot of that.
How many days a week do you think you go to shows?
There's certain weeks that I can go to a show every night, and then sometimes there's not a show all week. So I mean, I think on average, probably two a week, but it can get really busy sometimes.
Yeah. I've heard people say to like kind of get ahead and make it in the industry. Like it's definitely more than just a career. It's definitely a lifestyle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Entire life kind of revolves around the business.
For sure. Yeah. And it's funny because, I mean, there are other entertainment industries that are similar, but you do end up hanging out with your coworkers a lot too. And there's a lot of like, you know, it's fun to go to a show.
Right.
And most of the people in the venue are there because they're fans of the band. But then there's always the contingent of like the music industry, as you could tell. And some shows are more industry than others. And you can always tell that they're like in the VIP section or not paying attention or, you know, whatever. But there's a lot, it is a lifestyle. There's kind of that aspect of like it, you're not really necessarily expected to hang out, but yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Everyone is hanging out, so you might as well be too.
Well, the industry is big about relationships and
yeah,
so it's a really important part.
For sure. And then the more you go to, the more you're going to meet other people from other companies, and even if you don't work with them, it's still good to know people in other aspects of the industry.
What advice do you have to the aspiring young person that's going to college, learning about the music and entertainment business that wants to go in this industry?
I always tell people to intern.
I
mean, it's still to this day, I see interns every year that people liked getting hired, or at least getting interviewed. As soon as they're graduating, they're like, oh yeah, that intern is ready for, you know, to go out into the workplace. We have a job. They're obviously going to go to people that they knew. Right. So that happens all the time. And really just being really busy and active in your community in the music scene. I mean, there's so many things you can do at home. You could intern at a venue or work at a venue or put on your own shows, or if you're in college, like, you know, be a part of like, you know, whatever music clubs or whatever's going on. But the more relationships you can have, it's always best.
Right. You got involved in you're still in school when you first got involved in this, right? What were some of the first roles and things that you did?
I was putting on my own shows. I always played in bands. I started playing in bands in high school. And then
you played the drums?
I played drums and always in punk bands. Like kind of pop punk or whatever. And then in college also played in bands, and we ended up playing some Warped Tour dates and touring and booking shows. And really that's what got me thinking about being in the music industry, because before it was just like something that I wanted to do because I like playing music with people. And then I realized that I liked the business side of it too. Right. So, that all started. I mean, I put on a show in high school too, but in college I ended up putting on a lot of shows at local venues, and it really helped us getting shows too, because I could book a show with bands from out of town, and then when we're coming through their town, they would
kind of do the show swap thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So
nice. And for those that don't know what a show swap is, what is the best way? What is a show swap, and what's the best way to use a show swap with another band?
Just, I mean, really just coming, if they're going to come through, or just being very aware of other people want to tour too. So you're going to be like, hey man, we're coming. We want to tour this other week, but you guys want to come down here first, and I'll book a show if you can help me book a show in your town. Right.
Does it always have to be you play with that same band on the same bill, or can it sometimes a show swap be you just help me get a show in your town?
Yeah, it could be that too. It could just be like, hey, this is the venue we usually play, and we have relationships, so we'll help you. You'll help you get a show there too. And I mean, I'm sure this is still happening a lot, but back when I was in Gainesville, particularly, it was such a music town where like the guys from Less Than Jake were still living there, guys from Hot Water Music were still living there, and everybody wanted to play Gainesville. Right. And you know, the big thing about it was not only were there a lot of places to play, but there were a lot of places to sleep. So people would just always have, you know, like floor space or whatever. It's very common to like go to a house party and just see like people that don't want to party, but they're already there because they're sleeping there that night, and you're just like stepping over band guys because you're going to get them another beer. Right.
Nice. So the scene there kind of died down a little bit. I mean, you still have Fest, which is like a big thing. Did you ever play in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was living there when it first started.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was that like to start?
It was cool because prior to Fest, there was Gainesville Fest that had been going on for I don't know how many years. That primarily was like kind of a hardcore metal festival. But I don't know if it was intentional, but I think they just knew that they weren't going to have Gainesville Fest anymore. And Tony Weinbender, who started Fest, who actually used to work for Fueled By Ramen for like a couple of years, he was doing a festival in Virginia where he was from, and I think he had ended up moving to Gainesville, and he's like, well, I'm going to start my own thing that Gainesville Fest is going away. So Fest.
And what's that all about, Fest? It's mostly like punk. And hardcore bands still, or is it?
It's punk.
Okay.
Punk, and I guess Less Than Jake would be the only like ska punk band.
Right.
But really it's super like, legit punk rock bands like Lawrence Arns and so many other bands that Strike Anywhere, Avail, those kind of things that were never got huge, but there's definitely a scene for them.
A big underground scene.
Yeah, an underground scene.
I don't know if you noticed, if you still pay attention to it, but there's a lot of like pre-fest shows now in Orlando and Tampa.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like there's a big demand still for that market. Do people travel into Florida for this festival?
Yeah. I mean, people from all over the world fly in for Fest to go to Gainesville, because that's kind of what Tony's built, and it's gotten so much bigger over the years. And then the last 3 years they've done, it's not just people playing up to Fest, it's like an actual pre-Fest in Ybor. That's happened the last few years, and I like that because I love Tampa a lot. I'm going to pre-Fest this October, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I went to the first pre-Fest, and it's just, Ybor's got bigger venues, and Gainesville's pretty small, so you definitely feel like you're more comfortable in Tampa, whereas Gainesville is smaller, dirtier, hotter, more punk rock.
Well, then I feel like the scene on outside of Fest, like the music scene there is not as big anymore, so there's not as many options for venues. Like, what's the setup? Is it kind of like a South by Southwest setup? Is it an actual festival at a big field?
It's like a South by, because it's different places. It got bigger, so I think the last few years there's been a field outdoor stage component to Fest, but mostly it's like you're going to this venue, you're going to this venue.
Nice.
So yeah, it's very similar to South by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, a controversial topic.
Uh-oh.
A lot of our students and a lot of young people that I come across every day. And before I finish the whole story, I am on your side. All right. So a lot of young people are like hating on record labels these days and want to do it independently, and are mad at the labels for giving out bad deals terrible deals. And I always say, well, the reason they're giving out bad deals is because you keep signing them, and as long as you keep signing them, you're going to keep getting bad deals. Stop signing bad deals and negotiate a little bit.
That's good advice.
So what is your kind of perspectives on the label haters, and what are some of the benefits of being on a big label?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that there's a lot that you can do now for sure on your own. I mean, without naming any band names, there's definitely been times where I'm like, why did you sign? Because you want to do things your way, and you want to continue doing things your way, and it was going fine. And you can have a booking agent and a lawyer and a manager and do your thing. Right. I think if you're going to sign with a label, you should believe in the things that they've done for other bands and their strong suits, and really make it a partnership, because overall you're all going for the same goals, like making you a bigger band and selling records and selling tickets and merch and all of that. So yeah, I would agree that you can do a lot of things on your own. I think the major benefit of especially major labels, or even indie labels that are under major labels, is the radio component, and the press component too. And then there's also like brand partnership stuff that, you really need someone that's like has those relationships, or can go to radio and work your song if you want to go that route, that you couldn't do on your own. Like, you can't be a band and just go into a radio station and be like, play my song. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So there are like gatekeepers and things that you need to kind of go through a label for, but you don't need to if you're not interested in any of that, and you want to, upload your own, like produce your own videos, upload them to your own YouTube channel, do all your social media. You have a clear vision. You're touring yourself, or you have an agent and not a label, and you're getting good tours. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
The more you can, and plus labels have become more stingy too, because records aren't selling as like they used to.
Sure.
So they can't sign as many bands as they used to either. So they like bands that have shit going on their own.
Right.
So you're going to make yourself more attractive, and you're going to end up getting better deals because more labels are going to want you.
Right. I mean, I always talk about it as like if you were to open a business. I mean, every artist is a business.
Right.
So if you are opening a business and take your business serious, there's going to come a point where, yeah, you do a lot of stuff on your own, but then you're going to kind of outgrow yourself and kind of need help, like that boost to get to the next level.
Exactly.
And that's a great place where labels can come in and help you open up new doors that you may not be able to break down on your own because you just don't have those relationships.
Yep. Or you don't have the time. Like, you know, you're the artist. You need to write the next record, or you need to practice like being good live.
Right.
Like concentrate on the stuff that is important, and then let someone else that you trust help you with the other stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
That's
So let me get into some of the artist development questions. So what is artist development to you, and what all goes into the artist development process?
I think artist development to me, I mean, when it comes to like the label side or even just management, booking agent side, is sticking with a clear vision to help it grow and not, not bailing on a band because it's not working out like, as quickly as you want.
Right.
Sometimes things take time to build. So you need to everyone needs to be patient and just make the right calls, and you never know.
Right.
Something can happen and it'll create this buzz and off you go.
Now in in a social media world, and where most of the revenue comes from touring, is artist development all about touring and social media, or is there other things that go into it?
I think there's other things. I think creative is art, merch. There's everything that is gonna kind of help the overall vision and help like that regular fan become obsessed with you. Because is artist development.
Right.
I keep going back. I think the biggest success story overall is 21 Pilots. Hands down. And they've always had a clear vision of how they want to sound like online on their socials, how they talk to their fans. They've always stayed on the road a lot. They keep coming back to the same towns. Every time they came back, it was bigger and bigger. They were doing things on purpose and with a purpose, always. Yeah. There was never anything whoops, that's a mess up, blah, blah, blah. It's no, they were intentionally doing everything the same and consistently.
What's the process on your side have been like for 21 Pilots? Because when I was at Live Nation, I've literally seen that band. They're not an overnight sensation. I've literally seen that band grow from the small room. And Live Nation's been behind them from day one too. Yeah. I've literally seen them grow from the small rooms as the parish in New Orleans that holds 300 people to now playing arenas. And that's been from day one where Live Nation has been involved. Was it a partnership like that kind of really helped that band? Was there some other things that came in from your guys' side, or something that they did? What was kind of the process in there?
I mean, there's a lot of things. I think a lot of it came from them, though, especially the early days. They took the time to talk to every fan at every show. They just stayed on the road. They always headlined, too. I think it's a big thing. They never were first of four on some tour that just because it was with a bigger band. Right. Because a lot of times people won't show up that early, or if they do, they don't care. They're only there for the big band. So they always did things, their touring was always on their own terms. And they have one of the best live shows in general. Their stage, it's only two guys. Right. But they give it all they got, no matter what size room it is. They're doing backflips. Tyler's running all over the place, climbing shit, You always think he's going to fall down and break his neck. But it's so, yeah, it was just the consistency and just really believing in what they do. That really worked. Right.
You mentioned about them talking to every fan. Yeah. And I've so many times have seen bands get that opening slot and get to play in front of 1,000 or a couple thousand people, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna come back down to the same town and we're gonna headline now, and 50 people show up after
Uh-huh.
playing in front of a couple thousand people. Like, what is going wrong there? Is that because they're not talking to fans? Is there not enough of a connection? Like,
Right.
what's going wrong in that process?
I think they just need to come back 3 more times headlining to build their own thing, you know, because there were 2,000 people at that first show that weren't there for them at all.
Right.
And maybe 15 of those people were actually, of the 50 people when they came back, were actually at that show too. And
Right.
the other, 35 people were those 15 people telling their friends, oh, we saw them open for blah, blah, blah. They're really good. But you have to, that's why I think headlining and doing things on your own terms, building your own base is so important. There are a lot of bands that are always been like, not even the main support. They've been like 2 of 4 on a ton of tours. And if you keep doing that, you're not building anything.
Right.
You're basically just playing to other people's fans.
A question I get a lot, so talking about playing for other people's fans, is the whole pay-to-play situation, like buying on the tours. What are your thoughts on that, and is that effective at all as a way of developing yourself as an artist?
I don't think I have any concrete examples of that ever really working. I think of that as that headliner on that tour and their manager were probably like, hell yeah, like someone wants to pay money to like
Extra revenue stream.
offset expenses of this tour. That's great.
Right.
That's the only positive I've ever really heard from that. I mean, obviously there are probably examples where that's where you kind of started out and then you went off to tour yourself, so I can't hand on it completely, but bottom line is you always got to build something yourself.
Right.
Because you're not gonna have any of your own fans or people buying into your stuff unless you do that.
Totally agree. Yeah. What are some? So if you had to pick 3 things that opening another round.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's go on a little tangent. What are you drinking right now?
Drinking Cigar City High Life IPA.
Sticking
from
to your
Tampa.
roots of Florida.
I actually Nashville is really weird, so I actually had to buy this in Atlanta because it's not distributed here yet.
So you drove all the way to Atlanta to buy.
Well, I was down there for Wrecking Ball Fest.
Okay.
And then we found this beer store, and then I actually had a suitcase that I checked, and I just like stocked it with beer and brought it back.
Oh, you took all this beer on a plane?
yeah.
Nice.
So it was great. I mean, if you do that with cans, that's my first time ever doing that. Totally fine. I mean, nothing exploded or, they all made it back.
Nice. Some good old Cigar City. Yeah. And what do we got here that you served me?
You got Jackalope, which is Nashville.
Nashville.
They
It's
have
really
a
good.
brewery. Yep.
So Jackalope, Thunder, and American Pale Ale.
Yeah.
Love it. Is there a lot of breweries in Nashville? Or?
Yes. And, I've been living here for 2.5 years. There was only, when I moved here, Jackalope was here, Yazoo.
I see Yazoo everywhere.
Yazoo is like kind of the original. They've been, the craft beer brewery in town since like 2000, I think. But since then, there's been probably 7 or 8 new breweries just within Nashville proper, and like some more in the area. So it's exploding for sure.
Nice. How do you like the beer better here, or did you like it better in New York?
I think that Nashville is still working its way to having quality beer.
Okay.
There's some, I'll give some love to Southern Grist Brewing for sure. They're
Southern Grist.
making some of the best beer in Nashville, and Tennessee Brew Works has some really tasty beer as well. But overall, if you, and it wasn't just New York. New York would get stuff from states that I like. We're talking about beer because I love talking about beer.
Oh yeah.
From states that have been doing craft and local beer really well for a long time, like Washington and Portland and California. Like that whole like Northwest and West side has been killing beer forever.
Right.
So you can't really compare like new scenes all over popping up all over the country with Portland and Seattle that just...
Well, you've been to Asheville, though. We talked about earlier.
Yeah,
and,
so
and
Asheville
Asheville has been Beer City, USA several times.
Right.
So how's the beer from the West Coast compared to Asheville?
I think Asheville for sure, hands down, when it comes to southern cities, is the best beer city. I think the South just has a different way of going about it. Like a lot of their styles are maltier. Like I'm a big IPA guy. You get a Southern IPA, it's like full of malt.
Right.
Whereas you get a West Coast IPA, it's like super hoppy and tropical. And, so
It's definitely a big difference in the taste.
it's a big difference. Yeah. So it's getting there.
Yeah. What's your favorite brewery?
I mean, Cigar City is definitely up there. I love it. That's why I'm drinking it right
Southern
now.
hometown.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been to the actual brewery?
Yes,
Yes?
many times. I mean, whenever I go to Tampa, it's like all my friends there make fun of me because that's like my first stop.
straight from the plane to
the brewery.
Cigar City.
Actually, the last time I flew to Tampa was for a wedding, and they have a Cigar City like restaurant in the airport, and it was right outside of my gate. I got off the plane. I saw it. Tara was with me, my girlfriend Tara. Shout out. And she's like, "Oh my God, look over there! It's Cigar City." I was like, "All right, I gotta go get a stop." So we had checked bags, so we couldn't just chill because our bags were going to be on the conveyor belt in like 5 minutes. So we took the beers on the tram to baggage claim, and no one ever stopped us.
Nice.
And I got my bag, and I literally walked almost to the Uber with it.
Nice.
So yeah, I like beer.
Does Cigar City have like a brewery tour over there?
Yeah, you can do a tour.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so I'm living in South Florida now with my fiance Alicia, and DuPont Brewery. Is it DuPont that we went to? You're gonna be a special guest on the podcast. For
Special guest.
Due South. All right. Ooh. Shout out to Due South Brewery. Have you heard of them yet?
No.
Really great brewery in Boynton Beach.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's a really cool vibe in there as well.
Is it super retirement-y?
No, Boynton Beach is kind of like the hip area.
It's getting hip.
I mean, it's not as hip as Del Rey as we were talking about earlier,
right.
but it's definitely a lot of young people that go to Boynton Beach.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's a lot of breweries popping up in South Florida.
Yeah, that's the best thing about traveling right now. It's just like any city you go to has their home brewery, and it's part of why I go to cities.
Yeah.
You know,
check out the local brewery, check out a venue.
Exactly.
Brewery first.
Yeah.
So you know what to drink at the venue.
Brewery first, for sure. They're usually a lot cheaper at the brewery, too.
Yeah. When's the last time you went to New Orleans? Because I know we met in New Orleans the first time.
Yeah, it was over Christmas.
Christmas?
Yeah, this past Christmas.
Have you seen the new tap room from Nola Brewery?
Yeah, the expansion.
It's amazing.
It's awesome.
So good.
We didn't go upstairs because when we went, I don't think the upstairs was open for some reason. But yeah, it looks super nice.
Yeah, it's really cool what they've done over there.
And they do good stuff too.
There's another new brewery over there as a shout out to the Second Line Brewery. I don't know if you heard of them yet. They're in Mid City and really good. They're not distributed. Well, last time we were there, they weren't distributed in a lot of places yet. But really good beer over there.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, there needed to be another good brewery there, and Nola was literally
the only one. They're running it down, and then Abita that's not even from New Orleans.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So one of my goals is, once I give my stupid fear of flying, is to go to Germany in 2040. Are you familiar with the Weinstefaner brewery?
No.
It's the oldest.
Oh, yes, I am, for
the
sure.
oldest brewery in the world.
Yeah.
And in 2040 is their 1,000-year anniversary.
That's awesome.
So I think we should plan a trip.
Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be great. It's funny, I often say, you can find like German, what do you call them, like table side, why am I blanking, where there's like picnic tables, beer halls.
It's like the longer tables with the long benches.
Exactly.
Tables.
Like you can find those around in the States. And for whatever reason, I have always been, and I think it's because I like ales a lot. I'm always like, I love those beer halls that have like American stuff too, because then I can get like one Pilsner or like a Bock, but then I can go straight back to my IPA and like be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, German beers are very about their Pilsners, their Bocks, and their Hefeweizens.
Hefeweizens,
my world.
Yeah. Yep. Not a big wheat beer fan. I used to be, but Germans know how to make it though.
Yeah,
it's not Blue Moon.
No, I haven't seen an American wheat beer that I like yet. I know Yazoo has their Hefeweizen, and I was tempted to try it.
Right.
Have you experimented in that world yet?
Yeah. Let me think of my favorite. Cigar City. Give them some more DAP. They do the Florida Cracker. That comes in cans. It's all over Publix. Like you can try that one.
Publix.
Give them a little love. There's Publix here too.
Really? They all have in Nashville? So
that
Publix
was another
is a big grocery
reason why I moved
store
here.
from Tampa, right?
I think it's from Georgia at first.
Oh, really?
And then went to Florida, I believe.
Another headquarters like in Lakeland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lakeland.
For those that don't know, there's absolutely nothing there.
Nothing there.
Except for Publix and their headquarters.
Yeah.
Well, from beer back to the artist development. What are 3 things an artist can do to kind of stack the cards in their favor when it comes to artist development? Because I know a lot of the artist development, like back in the day, like labels would sign an artist that had nothing going on yet.
Right.
Where now labels will kind of like wait around until they kind of have something going.
Mm-hmm.
So what are 3 things you think an artist can do to kind of stack the cards in their favor when it comes to being attracted to labels?
I think just being you got to be good at social media. You have to. There have been certain bands throughout the years that I've met that weren't interested in being like the social media band and don't have their own personal Twitters or Instagrams or whatever. But
now, does it piss you guys off as much as it does for me when a band is using their Twitter as a feed from their Facebook and you have nothing but Facebook links on their Twitter?
For sure.
It's just lazy.
Yeah, it's very lazy, and you got to think about what that looks like to somebody, you know, that's just going on your page and it looks like nonsense.
Right.
You know? But yeah, obviously not every person in the band is going to, I think artist development on the band side, you got to figure out who's good at what. Mm-hmm. And if the singer is not really good on social media and says dumb shit or doesn't know how to use it, but the drummer is really good at it, make the drummer that person. Right. Or, you know, whatever that is, or whoever's like really good at speaking in the press, like have them speak more.
Right.
So finding your strengths and sticking with that, I think is good. But the more you have going on and the more vision you have, and the more labels are going to want you.
Right.
And it's, you know, they're not going to change you. If things are going well and they want you, it's because they want you for the reasons
that you're already doing
that you're already like doing. Yeah.
Right. I always say too, like if you're, especially as a band, like as a singer-songwriter, it's so much harder because you're just on your own. Yeah. But if you're a band, if you have 4 people with 4 completely different personalities, like there's a band that I kind of, I don't know if we want to call it mentor or kind of support in Orlando. They're called Empire Theory. So shout out to those guys.
Nice.
But they have like 4 complete different, unique personalities. And I'm like, why not just showcase that on social media and like kind of connect with new people? Like, what are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
For sure. I mean, kids, because they have such access to bands, because every band member has their own personal, everyone is just as vain as the next person. So they all have their own personal accounts and they're talking about what beer they're drinking or who they're going to see or what trips they're taking or whatever. So that everyone has access. They're going to pick up on the personality, and every fan, especially like young fans, are going to be like, oh, I love that guy. I love that girl in the band. I like, you know, for certain reasons.
Right.
So you show your personality because the more real you can be. Yeah, I've seen certain bands like they post only in black and white photos, which I think is cool if that's your thing. But if you're only posting like black and white photos of you on stage, then you never see that personality of like, people want to see what are you doing in between the shows, or well, you know, they want to see you on the bus or in the van and that kind of stuff, or hanging out with other bands and just being normal, right? Because everyone's interested in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So
when it comes to being interested in what you're doing, with the content stuff, what's the best way to promote a show? Because like I feel like a lot of times when people just post a flyer or a link to the tickets to their show, like it's not very effective. Like, not a lot of people paying attention to that. So how can you promote your show and actually get people to pay attention and share that post? That's
the hardest thing. I think everything needs to be correct, and you do everything possible to promote a date. Mm-hmm. So like if there's bands in town, and then there's your Facebook section that has tour dates, and then there's your actual band website that has a tour date section, and then there's your Instagram and your Twitter, and then your personal Twitters and Instagrams, and then making sure the venue site is correct and the venue is actually holding up their end of the bargain and actually marketing, which a manager or a tour manager or a label should help you with. Right. So you have to do everything because people are going to see that you're coming, and they'll see the announcement of the tour, be like, oh, it's coming to my city. And then there's like 80 other tours that are announced. And then they're like, oh, that's all coming too. And then we all do it. We're like, what day was that show again? And when is it? And then you don't remember until like 2 weeks later. And sometimes there's stuff that's incorrect, like on some website, you know, or there's not a ticket link associated with the date, making it very easy for someone to buy a ticket right then. All that stuff just has to be on point.
Right. Yeah.
It's really boring. There's no like easy way to sell tickets because there's a lot of shit going on.
If you're starting a band these days, you have to like have a full-on marketing department.
Yeah,
within your band.
Right.
What are some common mistakes that you see bands make when it comes to the artist development process?
I think really, like I was saying, just they kind of. I think going away is the worst thing you can do. Like especially when you're developing for any band, though.
Right.
I mean, unless you're like U2, like you can't go away. You have to, even if you're writing, like let your fans know you're writing and show them that side of writing. Or if you're in the studio, let them in on the studio. If you're on tour, let them in like between the tour dates, not just like you being on stage.
Right.
So I think the not going away is probably a good thing to do.
So you almost have to like basically become a content marketer. So even like if you're not necessarily releasing new music, you still got to put out some kind of content to keep people engaged and interested and not forgetting about you.
For sure. And a label can help you with that. Or like, you know, that's when it comes to, I think the digital marketing side of labels is so important when they're good at what they do and they understand what you're trying to do. And they'll always give you ideas because you're trying to be, as a band, creative all the time with your music.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to be creative with that, and then you get frustrated because now you have to come up with ideas for content. It's like, well, if that's not coming to you naturally, get someone to help you with that.
Right. What are some challenges you've encountered working with artists? And it doesn't have to be necessarily artist development related. It could be anything, like just shit that goes wrong while bands are on the road. You know, like a lot of these bands hit the road when they're teenagers still. And they spend like 200 to 300 days a year on the road and pick up bad habits. So what are some common challenges from a label side that you have to deal with?
I think probably the most common thing is not being on the same page. There's like certain times where, you know, if you're going to be on a label and say the label has a really good, and this is just a total example, and it's going to sound like I'm talking about some specific bands and a specific YouTube channel, but sure. But Fueled By Ramen has a big YouTube channel. I think at some certain point it was like the top 3 music channel. It still could be, I'm not sure, but so it behooves every band to have music videos on that channel. And of course you can have it on that channel and the band can have their own separate channel, or just kind of page within the channel. But, you know, there are certain bands that will just be like, well, we've been building this thing and we've had our own channel and we've always posted it on ours and let's just premiere it there. And it's like, well, you don't understand that, you know, when the biggest band on Fueled By Ramen is posting a video on the channel, that's going to bring so many hits to other videos on that channel. Right. So it just makes it a big thing. So,
and that's a way of like distribution. Like you can distribute yourself by having your video featured on other channels besides your own because they have other followers that you don't have.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's kind of like what's good for one band, it's good for the whole system kind of outlook. And we try to be a family and help draft basically like popularity to other bands on the label while still keeping the integrity of those certain individual bands. So yes, what was the question? It was like the biggest mistake, I think it was.
Common challenges.
Common challenges, yeah. So I think the challenge there is just like, again, just if you like the way things are going and you're kind of not going to do the best thing overall for your band by just being, you know, sort of stubborn and set in your own ways, I don't think that's usually the challenge, I think, that labels encounter. Yeah. And it's fine. I mean, like I said, I don't think anyone needs to sign to a label, especially if you're going to, you know, want to stick to the way things go, or the way things are going without that label presence. So.
Well, if you add anybody to your team, period, whether it's a label, a manager, an attorney, an agent, like you have to be open-minded. I mean, the reason you're building your team is because you're trying to bring other experiences to the table, and not a single person on the team knows everything. It's about collaborating and about teamwork and being able to work well in a team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, so you talked earlier about interning being like a big thing.
Yes.
And what would you like to see? So like more now than ever, like there's entertainment business degrees, music business degrees that students are getting. What would you like them to see them learn and bring to the table when they are coming to that internship and they are pursuing that kind of degree?
I think you should just have. The reason why I think interning is so big is that I don't think labels necessarily care what you majored in.
Right.
So when you're at that internship, just be super eager to learn. If you're being told a task that's kind of annoying and stupid, it's not all going to be that way.
Right.
So just be like, all right, cool, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And do it quickly and then do it correctly and come back and be like, hey, I'm all set. Because that really like helped that person's day. And then they're going to be like, that person's awesome. And they're going to trust you more and give you something cooler, next time. So, internships are so big because you're going to learn so much when you're there. And it doesn't really, like kids will email us and be like, what should I major in? I'm going into school. Right. And it's like, whatever you want.
Right.
But just if you intern, you'll learn, if you want to be in the music industry, of course, there's a lot of other things you can do. And I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say like working for labels is the most lucrative thing you can do at this point.
Right.
But, there's still jobs and still labels. So if you want to do that, interning will allow you to learn the inner workings and be like, oh, this department's pretty cool. I like what they do. So yeah, I think that's why it's super important.
Right. Okay. What are some, so regardless of what major you come from, what are some technologies and tools, especially from being someone that's on the marketing side, that someone can learn to give them a kind of a competitive edge, like learning how to use Photoshop and things like that?
I think graphic design definitely. I mean, you don't have to be super proficient, but just know a little bit of it.
Like if someone sends you a PSD file, knowing how to change the title.
Exactly. Yeah, just even simple stuff like that. Because, that stuff's super important. And if you get pretty good at Photoshop and you get creative on it, it'll help. It'll help. You can also do things on the side and make a little money side hustling and doing just like little flyers for whatever school event or like a show or helping a venue. So I think the digital stuff and just knowing how whatever popular social media platform is happening, how that works. And then having a little bit of insight on online advertising too, I think definitely helps too.
Okay. So if you were to start a band again, and you knew everything you know today, but yet zero contacts, no connections, and you were just starting out, what will your first year of artist development look like for your band?
Wow. Okay, so I would make sure everything is on point. Have good art, have really good socials, making sure things are just straight up looking great all the time. I think it's really easy to kind of let your Facebook fall by the wayside or your like band website fall by the wayside because you just haven't updated it or whatever. You can't do that. I think you have to look good across the board to look like you know what you're doing. And then just play as many shows as possible.
And when you say play as many shows as possible, is that within your hometown? Is that within a certain region? How far does that region expand? Yeah,
you could definitely overplay in your hometown for sure.
Right.
So, but, I think you try to book your own mini tours, just get out there and then try to meet other bands and trade.
Right. So when talking to agents, like I see a lot of agents talk about focusing on just like 5 to 8, maybe some will say 10 markets. Do you, from your experience, would you focus? Because sometimes there's bands that you see like they'll be from Florida and say, let me go on an entire East Coast run, and then won't be able to follow that run up for another year or two.
Right.
Is it better to focus on those 5 to 8 markets, or is there something different approach that you would take from your experience?
Yeah, I guess it depends on your genre. Because, if you're kind of like that jam bandy type band and you're hitting up like college campuses and college towns, it's probably smart to do that.
Right.
And just, and if you can only make it to like 7 or 8 of them kind of regionally and you start to get bigger there, someone else is going to pay attention. And
right.
You're probably at a certain point, you're going to need an agent to get like, to book shows for you nationally. Yeah. So do all you can. And make sure that every step along the way, you're just improving on that.
So who have been some mentors in your career, and what is the importance of people seeking out mentors as they're going on this journey?
I think I've never really called anyone like, oh, you've been my mentor, but I definitely have worked with really super smart people and still do. So I always just try to pick up little habits or pick people's brains kind of on a just more social laid back level. And the more you can do that, the better. I've John Janik, obviously being the head of Interscope and used to be, head of Fueled By Ramen. He's definitely one of the most successful and respected people in the business. And I used to, play pickup basketball games with him and see him every day. So I've been pretty lucky on that end. But I think it is important. It's definitely, a mentor doesn't have to be older. It doesn't have to be like completely more experienced than you, but I think you can learn from other people. Like even if they're just your same level, they're just better at something.
Everyone knows something that you don't, right?
Yeah.
You should always be learning and growing by learning by what others can bring to the table. Right?
Exactly. And I think, it's easy to get bogged down in your daily like emails and just stare at your computer and stay in your office or your cube because you're busy.
Right.
But I think the most important thing is to not do that, or at least be conscious of it, and just go take a walk in your office and just start talking to people. And like, it doesn't have to. It's funny when you work in the same industry, it'll end up being, especially you have a couple of drinks or whatever, end up talking about your work. Right. But don't start it out something else. Like talk about like the new Netflix show that you just binge watched. Yeah. And then it'll evolve into talking about.
Speaking of Netflix, have you watched Stranger Things?
Yes, of course.
Oh man, totally obsessed.
It was awesome.
we watched it in a weekend.
We watched it in one day.
Wow.
We tried watching it one day and then only watched the first episode and realized we were too tired. And then like the next sitting, we literally watched the whole thing. So,
wow. Yeah. Have you heard of the rumor? I mean, one rumor I read about the next season is that season 1's like really based in the 80s, which I think is really cool about the show. But I've also seen like rumors that season 2 is gonna be the 90s, season 2 is gonna be the 2000s.
Wow.
Season 4 is gonna be the future, and then season 5 will bring it back to present times. And have you seen that?
No, I haven't heard that at all.
Yeah, I kind of hope they kind of keep the same characters around.
Yeah, don't get too like, I don't know. I don't want to just every season thinking like, oh, it's going to be a new decade. I don't know. It just bring out expectations that I don't want to put on that show.
Right. Well, there's some other shows that you watch.
It's a question. What else did we watch? We watched The Night Of on HBO. Yeah. It was really good. Yeah. You guys should check it out.
Yeah.
And then they just finished the first season of it.
Okay. We're big like Game of Thrones fans.
Oh yeah, we've watched all of that too.
We just got tickets to the Game of Thrones tour.
Oh,
have you heard of that yet?
No.
So Live Nation's doing a tour of Game of Thrones, and like I've seen like the layout of the stage. It literally takes up the entire floor of the arena, and it's an orchestra that plays the music of Game of Thrones along with some kind of theatrical performance.
Oh wow, super nerdy.
Yeah, super nerdy. We're gonna go dressed up. I'm gonna be Jon Snow.
Nice.
It's just gonna be Khaleesi.
Yeah. And you have the long hair too. And
I'm starting to grow in it.
Yeah. So, yeah, you did it for that reason.
Yeah, just for that reason. That's the only reason I wanted to grow it out. No, originally it was because I wanted to grow it out for charity. Yeah. And then donate my hair, and the rule was I had to cut my hair before the wedding, but now we're both kind of liking the longer hair.
Nice.
So we'll see where it goes. Yeah.
My hair just grows up.
It just grows up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine did that for a while too.
Yeah.
I mean, it still kind of does. It grows up and sideways.
Yeah.
And when I don't put it in a baby bun, Alicia calls it the lampshade look.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Well, the man buns are probably still in, right? They're never going away now at this point.
I think they're still cool. We'll see. All right, so some last final questions. Tell me about an app you recently discovered. It can be something like Evernote that you think people should be using, whether it's for business or if it's just for fun.
Something that's really cool is that there's a guy locally that did the metal emoji keyboard. Yeah, so it has like all these like little emojis that are like metal related, like, you know, the horns and like an axe and 666 and all these things. I think it's cool because not only can, you know, kids love emojis and they can use them in their text, but you can use, because it's basically like you download it from the App Store and it creates an icon, and then when those people have that app, you could send push notifications or like send updates to the keyboard itself. And I think it's a very creative way if you're like rolling out a record and or doing something where it's like you can update new, you know, little graphics or just messaging around something that's coming.
Do you know what this app's called?
Metal emoji.
Oh, metal emoji.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I like it. Let's see. I have a health question in there, but we're drinking beer right now, and we're not going to go to the health stuff.
Health.
What piece of media do you share the most? It can be something to give advice to people, or it could be entertainment. It could be a book, podcast, video, an article. So, example, I share the article from Kevin Kelly the most. I don't know the article, 1,000 True Fans.
Okay.
But that's what I share a lot with bands and students.
Interesting.
So that is an example. It's something that you share the most.
I don't know. I don't think I have like a go-to like piece of like, this is a good thing for you to see.
You should read this.
Onion articles.
Onion articles.
Yeah, I don't know really. Shit. That's one of those where I wish I had the question beforehand and I could have thought about it.
Are you someone that reads a lot? Is there any cool books that?
To be honest with you, I don't.
No,
But
I'm more of a podcast and audiobook guy myself.
Yeah. It's great. It's a great way to, you know, especially on a road trip.
Right, especially when you don't fly and you have to drive 10 hours to Nashville.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely, as of late, I mean, we were talking about it off before we started that podcast, Going Off Track. Like Jonah Bear and the people he does it with, they know so many good people and they've had really good conversations. Like the one episode that I always go back to is this guy Arturo Vega. He's the one that designed and came up with the Ramones logo. He ended up like passing away from cancer 2 years ago, but so they did this podcast interview, I think maybe 2 years before he passed away. But he really like goes into moving to New York in like 1970, 72, something like that. And then like meeting Dee Dee, I think he met first, or Johnny, I don't remember. And then coming up, designing the logo, and just goes through like the whole industry in New York at that time and what it was like to be with such an iconic band and having like designing their merch and their look and blah, blah, blah. That one for sure I've shared a lot. Where it's like it's a cool insight of how things used to be and how you can kind of relate it to now too.
So that's a good one. So Going Off Track. That's
Going Off Track.
Podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
So podcasts are free if anybody that has iTunes. Or Podcast Addict if you're not an Apple guy. Or
they have a site too where you could just stream it off their site.
Okay.
All the episodes.
Cool. Going Off Track. Cool, man. All right, before I get to the final questions, and we talk about beer a lot, have you ever thought about home brewing?
You know, it's really funny. I love craft beer and I go to breweries all the time. And Tara actually bought me a homebrew kit.
Nice.
And we still have never made it.
Oh, you got to do it.
For whatever reason, I love beer so much and I love the process of other people making beer. I don't want to make it.
Well, maybe one day we can do a podcast on home brewing and we'll both experiment on
that would be cool.
on brewing.
I definitely want to try it. And everyone always asks me, like, you love beer, like, do you make your own beer? And I'm like, I don't really, it doesn't interest me that much, but maybe if I tried it, I'd probably get into it.
There's a real, what's the festival in New Orleans we went to in City Park? It wasn't Hogs for the Cause. There's so many great festivals in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But some kind of festival in Mid-City, in City Park, and it's, I think, a beer festival, and they have like a whole home brewing section. I'm gonna look it up. I have show notes for the podcast, and I'll look it up, and I'm gonna put a link to the festival in the show notes. But they have beer from like all over Louisiana and like kind of the Southeast, but then they also have like a home brewing section where you can literally get samples from a bunch of different home brewers.
Right.
Really
That's
cool.
awesome.
So yeah, when I find out about that, I have to let you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So the title of this podcast is Making It, right?
Yeah.
So what's your definition of making it?
Being happy with what you're doing. No. Yeah, I think making it means not ever thinking you made it. Kind of like I try to come up with something, when it comes to like an idea at work that I didn't do the year prior or like the month prior or the record cycle prior, So yeah, just always kind of staying hungry. And then when you aren't hungry anymore, you probably change what you're doing because, you should probably stay that way. So.
And as we talked about earlier, like being in this business, I mean, it's definitely more of a lifestyle. Than let me set a couple goals and hit those goals, and I'm done. I'm set for life. Yeah. So like a lot of times you can get kind of like that personal, like just enjoying life, like traveling and enjoying like your family and going out doing things outside your industry. Like sometimes that stuff gets lost. Yeah. And like people like are constantly working and hitting goals and trying to make it and are never fulfilled though. Yeah. So like how important is being fulfilled to you, and what is something that you do to feel fulfilled?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot that reminded me of why.
Getting philosophical now.
Yeah, it's real deep. You said a lot that made me realize why, or remember why I wanted to move to Nashville, because in New York you can spend a lot of time not being at home because your apartment sucks and there's a lot of shit to do. So like you'll be at work longer hours because people work really hard there and they play really hard there, and then you'll end up never being home and never cooking at home and always out, and you come home at 2 a.m. every night, even if it's just like you had no idea that you were going to do that. It just happens. So coming here, having work-life balance was huge. You can still work really hard, but you can, it's a smaller town. You can get to point A, point B really quickly. So you can come home at like 7, eat dinner, and then go out to a show, and then still be home by like 10:30. Right. And you had a full day at work, and you went to a show. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that was really important. Just not everything has to do with work, Right. So being kind of well-rounded and having time for yourself is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any final words of wisdom or guidance you have for people listening that are aspiring to be in the music industry?
I think there's just a lot of aspects to the industry that are going to continue to do well, no matter how much people are streaming and not buying music or whatever. So I wouldn't be just look at every aspect of the industry. On the recording side or the merch side is really, I think, is kind of a big deal. People are always going to want to go see a band live, and they're always going to want like a piece of something from that band. And sometimes just a t-shirt. It's not even the album, it's a t-shirt. So think about that, and just go for what you love. There's still going to be a lot of jobs out there that are always going to be needed in music. So, and make a lot of contacts. Yeah. An intern.
Relationships and intern. Yeah. If anybody like listening, like what they heard and they want to get in touch with you, I don't want to give your email out, but if it's through social media or whatever, what is the best way for someone to get in touch?
I'm pretty wide open on social. So my name is Erick Charles. If you look up Erick Charles and Fueled by Ramen, you'll probably be able to see me on like Instagram, and I'm pretty active on Instagram. If you want to see like beer photos and what I'm drinking, then you'll see that.
Instagram, learn all about
yeah.
beer.
Yep. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, this was fun. Thanks so much for doing this. And for
It's my first time. Thanks for being my first time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a first. Always remember your first.
I'll always remember my first.
Well, no, thanks for doing this and giving back to people. You have a really cool story and been in the business for a really long time and a lot of great insight to share. So I really appreciate you doing this.
Cool. Thank you.
How was that? That was a fun interview. I really enjoyed this interview with Erick Charles. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did. Definitely was a lot of fun. He had so much great insight to share about the music industry and his experience. Very cool story. Very fun interview. Great way to kick off the Nashville series. So let me share real quick before we go our iTunes review of the week. This one is from Sook1210. And it's titled Fantastic. So if this review is from you, remember to send me a note and I'll leave my contact info in just a second. So the review goes like this. So from Sook1210, this podcast is fantastic. I really enjoyed listening to it. It is motivational and inspiring. I'm not an entrepreneur or in the music industry, and I think that the ideas and advice given can be used for everyone. Both speakers so far were inspiring and had great ideas and advice. Thank you so much for this review. This is definitely a great and wonderful review. And I totally agree. Definitely, like, regardless if you're in the music industry or entertainment industry or if you're an entrepreneur or not, a lot of these lessons can apply to many different things. When I first started getting into listening to podcasts, I didn't necessarily listen to entertainment business podcasts either. I listened to just stuff I was into. Besides music and business and entertainment business. And you really do learn so much from the lessons people have to share and the stories they have to share. So I'm really happy for this review. So thank you, Sook1210. So if this was you, please send me a note. And anyone else out there, the best way to reach me is you can reach me on email. It's chris@onelivemusic.org. So chris@onelivemusic.org. Or you can reach me also on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Chris Goyzueta everywhere. That's ChrisGoyzueta. We're going to continue next week with our Nashville series. So I hope to see you there on another episode of Making It with Chris G. Remember to try new things, be good to people, and in the words of the great Bob Marley, live the life you love.